Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 musical travel destinations. Sure, you want to take a trip? Well, you don't have to go anywhere. All you need is a set of speakers and a CD player, or your ear thingies and your iPod thing, whatever streamer device thing is. Really kind of amazing. Geography has been one of the great subjects of musical depiction since the dawn of time. I mean, it's even true when you go back to very abstract works like, the dance suites of the Baroque, Bach's Italian suites, or the English suites, or the French suites, or Telemann's, various overtures in the taste of such and such a country or such and such a place. Geography has informed our musical inspiration and knowledge since the very, very beginning. And of course, music is a wonderful way to introduce people to different cultures and different kinds of musical idioms, musical styles. However, what I'm talking about here is a musical evocation of a specific place, not just the style or the abstract idea of dances in a certain as they're done over there somewhere, or as opposed to over here somewhere, but rather music that tries to give you a sense of what it's like to actually be in the place in question. And wow. I mean, these are 16 things. They just came off the top of my head. I make no pretense to completion, obviously, because there are billions of these suckers out there. And I also don't have any, there's no reason why something got on the list or didn't get on the list. It's just happened this way. And that leaves lots of room for you, my good friends, to add your own geographical, musical whimsies. I really would like to see where you like to travel in music. This is such a fruitful topic for discussion. And for those of you, especially if you're just starting out with classical music, or you're trying to find something new and interesting, it's a wonderful hook, to get you involved in newer recordings of works, but of course newer music. It's a perennial topic, an eternal topic. So there's no sign of it slowing down, let's put it that way, because you'll see there are some fairly contemporary pieces here as well, and they're just oodles of fun. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Grofé's Grand Canyon Suite. Oh, this piece always gets trashed, but it's such a good piece of music. It's a wonderful, colorful, tuneful, brilliant evocation of the work in question. And I begin with the Grand Canyon Suite for reasons you will see very, very shortly when we get to the end of the list. So next, Smetana, of course, my Vlást. This is the iconic geographical work, although part of it is geographical and part of it is historical. Smetana's My Country, which is what my Vlást means, has 6 separate tone poems. One of them it begins with Vyšehrad, the fortress that overlooks Prague on the Charles River. And then you've got Vltava, or the Charles Bridge, pardon me. The Vltava is the Moldau, the Vltava River, or Charles Bridge. It's sort of like, well, it's up there somewhere. If you're in Prague, you can sort of wave at it. Anyway, then we go to the Moldau, which is the river itself. And then we have a historical portrait of Sharka, an Amazon warrioress. Oh, an Amazon warrior who falls in love and everyone gets slaughtered. And oh, it's so much fun. And then from Bohemia's meadows and fields, another bit of geography. And then Tabor and Blanik, which are also geographical locations, but also simultaneously evocations of the Hussite Wars and the Protestant Reformation and the heroic triumph of the Czech nation and all of that stuff. It's really a remarkable piece, and possibly the most graphic, complete, comprehensive view of a single nation in orchestral terms that we have yet heard. It's remarkable. Then, let's go up to England, to Vaughan Williams, a London Symphony. And here we have a symphony. And the symphony is in standard form, sonata form in the first movement, and the beautiful introduction. But all of it is evocative of London. London during its hustle and bustle during the day, and its beautiful nocturnal moods at night, and the fog drifting down the Thames River, and oh yes, all of those juicy Londonish things. There are a lot of musical evocations of London. I mean, really a lot of them. We could just do a talk on London. Maybe we'll do a major cities geographical survey. I mean, as a sort of series, a small series of things, because there's just, it's wonderful. There's tons of music that's great that way. Then we've got Ernest Bloch. Here's one you may not know well. Helvetia. Helvetia is Switzerland, Bloch's homeland. Bloch wrote 3 great geographical works. He wrote America, because he wound up here. He wrote the Israel Symphony as part of his Jewish cycle of things. And then there's Helvetia. This is the least known of all 3 of them. And it's certainly not the worst. It's delightful. A wonderful tone poem about his native Switzerland. And after Helvetia, let's go to Finland for Sibelius, of course. Tapiola. Now, Tapiola is not a specific geographical place that you can visit. It's more an evocation of the Finnish forests, the Northland forests. Tapiola means the dwelling of Tapio, the place of Tapio, the forest god. So it's generally speaking about the mystery and atmosphere and brooding silence of the great northern forests. And I've been to the great northern forests, and they don't really sound particularly like Tapiola. You kind of wish they did. Probably because today there's too much like timber mining and things going on there. It looks, it's all been somewhat modernized, but wow. I mean, what it was, you could hear in Tapiola. See, after Tapiola, what else? Oh, Holst. Yeah, back to the UK. Egdon Heath. Egdon Heath was considered by Holst to be his greatest work. It's a piece of barren desolation and stillness, atmosphere. It is actually a very, very beautiful and haunting, it really is the word, evocation of a place. And it's inspired by the works of Thomas Hardy, who, used to set all of his, miserable novels about miserable people doing miserable things to each other on the moors and the heath and the whatnot. Remember that? It's like that wonderful scene in Tess of the D'Urbervilles where she's, being impregnated by what's his name, Mr. D'Urberville or whatever his name is, and the bunnies are hopping over the heath, and it's night and it's moonlit, and there's like endless rolling hills of nothingness, and that's Egdon Heath. It's definitely nifty. A very, very inward piece of music, an intimate piece, and lovely for its unique atmosphere and feeling of mystery. Yes. Falla! Next, Nights in the Gardens of Spain. Oh, God, this is beautiful. It's basically a piano concerto, a tone poem in 3 movements for piano and orchestra, and it is beyond lovely. Oh, and full of nocturnal atmosphere, and I just love it. I really can't get enough of it. It's one of the most exquisitely crafted pieces of music in the entire repertoire, and it really does give you a sense of Nights in the Gardens of Spain. I mean, it's such a poetic image. I mean, let's face it. I don't even want to go there. I just want to listen to it, and it's enough. It really is. It's enough. It's stunning. Oh, well, going just the opposite direction. Jan Leifs from Iceland. Hekla. Hekla is a volcano. It's still a volcano. It still erupts periodically. Iceland, as you know, which is having an eruption as we speak. I mean, the things are happening there. It's constantly in motion, geologically, and geographically, because it's getting bigger as the lava oozes into the sea and enlarges the island. Hekla is the most powerful orchestral work ever written, quite probably. It's about 12 minutes of total mayhem, which I had the great good fortune to play the special guest anvil solo part in the recording on Ondine, part of Earquake, an album that I was instrumental in helping to produce. And oh my God, is it fun. It is a musical depiction of a volcanic eruption in Iceland. And by the way, in the percussion section, you're supposed to hit actual rocks from Hekla, lava, chunks of lava with hammers. it's actually not a terribly powerful effect, because when you hit a rock with a hammer, it just sort of goes ting. You want it to be something bigger, but of course we have chains and cannons and the anvils and all that other stuff to provide the extra, bass line. What an enormous and powerful and exciting piece of music. Never gets played because you need 22 percussionists and a huge orchestra. It only lasts about 12 minutes, and so, unless you're doing something else equally large, doesn't make a lot of sense, which is a pity, because it's wonderful. Then, Castellanos, Venezuelan composer, his Santa Cruz de Pacairigua. Pacairigua, that's what it's called. I heard this recently. It was a new discovery for me, and it's beautiful. Absolutely lovely. It's a church in Venezuela, and it's just a charming tone poem based on, of course, ethnic music and folk things, and with a pseudo religious overlay, and it's colorful and it'll get you. It will introduce you to a really lovely composer who wrote some terrific music. So think about Castellanos. See, that's a new one. The geography is always enlarging. The universe, the world. We've got so much to cover, and we haven't even tackled outer space yet. I mean, there's always moonlight on Jupiter, but that's a whole different kettle of beans, isn't it? Anyway, Strauss, Aus Italian. Nobody plays Aus Italian. Nobody cares about Aus Italian. It's one of Strauss's, it is Strauss's first sort of big tone poem. It's in the form of a 4-movement symphony. It's based on Italy. We could do a whole other huge thing about Italy, and maybe we shall. We'll do some European geography at some point. I think Aus Italian is beautiful. It's a wonderful piece. The concluding folk festival is based on the tune Funiculi Funicula, which led to the famous lawsuit by Luigi Denza, who wrote the tune, and he sued Strauss for copyright infringement. And Strauss, who was always a huge promoter of authors' rights in Germany and copyright, protections for composers, was horrified to find out that he had violated Denza's copyright. And his response when learning that Denza was suing him was, "You mean somebody wrote that tune?" Yes, someone did. Very, very amusing. But really a colorful and enjoyable work that doesn't get enough play or enough recognition for the exquisite piece of writing that it is. And then Ives, Charlie Ives, 3 places in New England. Oh my, I've been to all of those places in New England, and I did a video about the piece where I talked about that, where I show you a map where some of them are, especially the Housatonic River, because I grew up on the banks of the Housatonic River. Of course, Ives is Housatonic at Stockbridge, is in Massachusetts, but the river flows down through Connecticut to the Long Island Sound, which is where Milford is, where I grew up, on the banks of the Housatonic. But the other pieces are just as evocative and marvelous. One of Ives' most colorful and famous pieces, and fun to listen to. And here's a piano one. There are some piano ones. Well, there are a couple piano ones we're dealing with. First of all, we have to talk about Albeniz, Iberia. I mean, Iberia is the Vlást of Spain. It's the equivalent of Vlást in Spanish terms. I mean, it's 12 piano tone poems, each one illustrating another location in Spain. And oh my God, what a great work. I don't even have to talk about it because everybody is convinced that it's one of the all-time great geographical pieces in all of music, and one of the great romantic piano works. It's a stunner. Really great. If you don't have Iberia, you have to have Iberia. You really do. Spain is another one of those places where we could do a huge geographical survey of all kinds of nifty stuff. And I think as we go through this, I'm getting more and more hepped up for doing some specific geographical lists, because there's so much good music out there. And it's such a fun way to get to know so many composers. So yeah, Iberia, and then Godowsky, the Java Suite. Now there's a piano piece that's the Iberia of Java, I guess. I'm not quite sure. But Godowsky was famous for his Chopin etude contraptions. He did studies on Chopin etudes where he combined them and had you play 20 of them simultaneously. And he was one of those great virtuoso guys who wrote some absolutely remarkable piano music. And the Java Suite is just lovely. And there aren't that many solo piano geography-specific works by Western composers. How's that for a category? I mean, there are probably more than I know about. I know about quite a few more, actually, but the Java Suite is one of the best, and it's really enjoyable, and it's something that most people won't know. So I think it's definitely worth exploring if you're looking for some interesting new geography. And of course, the piano works very well in doing Java because the piano is a very good imitator of the Balinese gamelan. I mean, that's how, when Colin McPhee wrote Tabu Tabuhan, his celebration of Balinese music, it was for two pianos and orchestra, because you get that, the sound of metallophones, as you call them, all those xylophones and vibraphones, and, well, not vibraphones, but, metallophones, things that you hit with mallets, to put it that way. After Godowsky, we've got Villa-Lobos, Floresta do Amazonas. This is, it's Villa-Lobos. It's all over the place. It's the Amazonian rainforest in Brazil and elsewhere, wherever the Amazonian rainforest happens to live. Oh, this is just this big, huge, gushy, crazy, typical, exotic, lush effusion of orchestral music. It's just gorgeous. And it's about, more than an hour long. It's terrific. It's absolutely terrific. And if you don't know it, then you really ought to give it a listen. I mean, it's one of the most fabulous geographical evocations that you'll ever hear. So much fun, full of folklore and color and just excess. I mean, just total tropical excess, which is what you think of when you think of the Amazonian rainforest. I mean, Villa-Lobos knew what he was doing. And he did it by being completely and totally undisciplined, almost. I mean, it's what it sounds like, is it? No, of course not. But when you hear it, it's just so full of stuff. It's just like a rainforest. It's got musical biodiversity, and that's what you want to hear. And then just the opposite of that, Delius, the North Country sketches, back to the UK and the northern part of the British Isles, which is somewhat, as with Egdon Heath, it's somewhat bleak. It has, of course, seasons, and that's what this piece is. There are 4 of them, and it's something of a seasonal work. So you get more than just the desolation of Egdon Heath. You have springtime and other bits, but it's another evocation of real geography, an unpeopled landscape. And it's very interesting, actually, when you think of all of these pieces, to consider whether there are people there or whether there aren't people there, whether there's a human element, whether the music is based, for example, on ethnic folk songs and dances and the kind of human response to the land and evocation of the land, or alternately, whether it's an unpeopled landscape where you don't hear what you might call vocal melody, like, for example, Sibelius's Tapiola. Nobody's home. Nobody's in there. The same thing is true of Egdon Heath. It's an unpeopled landscape. And so it is with Delius's North Country sketches. And last but not least, speaking of unpeopled landscapes, we began with Grofé's Grand Canyon Suite, because we were talking about the Grand Canyon, and that is subsumed, in certain respects, into Olivier Messiaen's From the Canyons to the Stars. Each movement of which, and there's like a dozen of them, is based on Messiaen's experience of the American West and one of the great national parks or canyons. So you get Zion Park and Bryce Canyon and the Grand Canyon and the birds that inhabit the canyons. No people, again, no people at all. Just birds and wind and rocks and geographical formations and different times of day, and it's got a wind machine and a sand gadget that goes, it's really, really cool. And it ends with the Zion Park and the Celestial City, the transcendental union of geography as all part of God's creation in Messiaen's typically humble and unambitious musical program, with his Hindu rhythms and his birdie tweeties and his, oh gosh, it's amazing. And modes of limited transposition and strange color harmonies that are, synesthetically attached to different things. And it's all in there. one of the great contemporary geographical evocations. So there you have it, my friends, 16 bits of musical geography, which I think are just, they're all so much fun. And you'll have such a good time discovering them all and discovering the works you don't know and finding more that you do. And I look forward to see some of your suggestions as well. I really do. I think that there's just tons and tons and tons of stuff we can be talking about on this particular topic. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.